Okay, welcome to our June session of our SoTL SIG. So welcome back. I hope you are nice and warm wherever you are at the moment. It's quite cold in Melbourne, so hopefully everyone is warm somewhere. And so for today's session, we're joined by Associate Professor Tracy Douglas, who is going to be talking to us about how to demonstrate SoTL excellence and leadership in a successful promotion application. So thank you, Tracy, for joining us. As always, this session will be recorded. And so thank you to everyone who is with us today and everyone who's potentially watching this at home somewhere afterwards. And I will hand over to Tracy to lead our session today.
Thanks, Mel. So I will, first of all, always the first challenge is sharing the correct thing. So just bear with me. And I am aware, hopefully now,
Yes.
come into presentation mode. Yes, absolutely. Good. Wonderful. Okay, so I would like to thank the SoTL SIG for inviting me to talk about this. I am quite passionate about helping people who are very teaching focused and sort of have ended up in the SoTL space more than their discipline-based research to progress their career in any way that they see possible. And so I guess I've kind of put this presentation together thinking about, who I am and where I've been and what my journey is, and sharing that with you, as well as talking about how I've put together some successful applications and things that maybe will help you if this is something you're hoping to do in the future. So I would like to start by acknowledgement of country. Today I am on beautiful Charita Aboriginal land, sea and waterways, and so acknowledge with deep respect the traditional owners of this land. I also acknowledge the owners of the land which you are sitting on and listening to my presentation. I really acknowledge it's a privilege to stand on country and walk in the footsteps of those before us and pay respects to elders past and present, and to the many Aboriginal people that we know did not make elder status, and very much to the Tasmanian Aboriginal community that continue to care for country and give us the beautiful spaces that we can provide education, but also live in. So some of you may know me, a lot of you may not. I've been around for a while in higher education. So as Mel said, I am an associate professor, and so this was the success of my most recent promotion application. But basically, I'm a lecturer in human biology, and I really love lecturing and I really love teaching first years. So I'm a first year coordinator across a range of undergraduate courses. I'm a unit coordinator of some fairly large units. My largest unit is sitting at just around 400 and something students across 3 or 4 different campuses. And I also dabble in a variety of other areas. So I'm an academic integrity advisor currently for my school. And I also have a major leadership role within my college, although we are moving away from colleges at the University of Tasmania. But I'm responsible for student engagement and retention across all courses that are currently offered in health. My email address is there, and I really welcome anyone to contact me at any point if they're interested about anything I talk about today, or just to sort of brainstorm where they're at and what they might like to do in the space of promotion, or even teaching excellence, or anything that I talk about. So I am actually a physiologist. If you think about my discipline, that was where I started. I did a degree in comparative physiology and have ended up in the human space. But I'm really interested in learning and teaching, and that's where my career trajectory has gone, as you'll see, hopefully, as we move through this presentation. And I'm really passionate about first years. So I've always taught at first year, and I've taught at second and third year as well. But my absolute passion is teaching first years and also enabling their transition as well. So where did I all start? Well, I am originally South Australian, born and bred. So I studied at Flinders University of South Australia, where I did my Bachelor of Science and Honours. And after doing my honours, I felt I wasn't really ready for that whole master's PhD sort of career, but we didn't really know where to go, and was very much governed, I guess, by what my professor for my honours told me to do. And he felt that I was probably good to look at something in the teaching space or maybe look at a research assistant space. So I ended up looking at the teaching space and was lucky enough to be employed at the University of Tasmania as a tutor in a full-time position. And so made that big move from South Australia to Tasmania, which suited me because I really love cold climates, even though I am South Australian. While a tutor, I did study or have studied at UTAS, so I have further my credentials, if you like, and obtained a master's and a grad cert. And I'm currently a teaching intensive academic. When I was first employed, academics were not classified as, as we do now, teaching intensive or research intensive or whatever, we're just all academics. But there was that, I guess, requirement that people did some form of research. But as time's gone on, as you can see, I did move into more of a teaching research sort of focus and was really happy to put my hand up and be a teaching intensive academic quite a few years ago. And my most recent promotion occurred very recently at the end of last year to level D Associate Professor. So I thought it was kind of important to take you through my journey because it's not a normal career trajectory. I'm not someone who has always strived to be an associate professor. I've kind of just always been happy to do my job and take up opportunities as much as I could. So I did start as a full-time tutor, and back then everyone was really on contracts, and you would do a 3-year contract, and then you would do another 3-year contract and then possibly get tenure. And because I was employed in academia, there was a push for me to do a PhD, and I wasn't really in a space I wanted to do one, but I did some investigation and found a project in Hobart that I was interested in and a supervisor that I could work with. So I enrolled in that part-time while working in Launceston full-time. So it's about a 2-hour drive between the Launceston and Hobart campuses. So this was quite challenging, but it's something I embarked on in a time when there wasn't much digital tools available to us. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't, even have computers on our desks when we started in 1991. So it was an interesting time trying to balance that PhD. So in 1994, I did apply for another 3-year contract, and that was successful. And then I applied for tenure. So by 1995, I'd been interviewed for my job 3 times successfully. I was still level A, but I was enjoying it. And then I met a Tasmanian who I married. And for those of you who know Tasmania, if you meet an adult Tasmanian that haven't left Tasmania, they're probably not going to leave Tasmania. So I knew then that my life was very much settled here. And that was fine because I was very happy with my job here in Tasmania. But because of that, I found it hard to juggle the PhD, especially as we started a family with our firstborn in 2000. So I made that decision to actually convert to a master's and put a really good thesis together for a Master's of Medical Science and graduate with that rather than a PhD. And at that time, I was being given opportunities to really delve into some teaching initiatives, to look at leading teaching, to look at curriculum design, lots of different areas. And I took every opportunity I could to get professional development in learning and teaching. And as part of that, then embarked on the journey of a graduate certificate in university teaching and learning, and was part of the first cohort to graduate with that at UTAS, and also had some input into how that course was put together. So at that point, this is 14 years after I started, I was, coordinating units, I had leadership roles, and everyone's going, why aren't you level B? So I did successfully apply for promotion to level B in 2005. And I felt because I had that teaching qualification and my master's, I was worthy for that promotion. And then I embarked on a lot of initiatives. I started to make some connections, joined HERDSA, joined SoTL and a number of other affiliations, started to broaden my connections beyond the university and out to Australia and even the world, and was able to develop some initiatives that got recognised in my ability to teach, but also to transition students to first year. And this has resulted in my citations, both at the local and the national level. Then I was thinking about maybe with all this leadership, maybe I should be thinking about senior lectureship. And I was also aware that I didn't have that PhD. That PhD was always that little carrot that my heads of school wanted me to go for, but I just felt it wasn't something I needed to do because I kept thinking, if I do a PhD, will it make me a better lecturer? I don't think so. So I kind of just kept pushing it aside. Then I had the opportunity to apply for a senior fellowship at the Higher Education Academy in the UK, which was successful. And I was aware that if you have that qualification in the UK, you are a senior lecturer. So once I had that under my belt, I felt then that I did have enough information, enough evidence to hopefully be promoted to level C. And so I went for that promotion and I was buoyed by the knowledge that I had some HERDSA colleagues in South Australia who had just recently at the University of Adelaide, which is a group of 8 university, been promoted to Associate Professor and they didn't have PhDs. So I felt that, it's possible to do it. You've just got to craft your application correctly. So I was successful in that application for promotion to level C and was surprised at the time when I got it when lots of people were not aware I wasn't a senior lecturer. They thought I was because I was doing all these leadership roles. So I felt then that's good. I'm happy. I'm a senior lecturer. That's exactly where I am. But then, of course, I started to pull together some more evidence, some more initiatives, started to do a lot of different things, have more leadership opportunities. And so then I was invited to apply for the University Teaching Excellence Award, which I was successful in getting. And then 5 years later, you're allowed to then apply for the university medals, both within your college and the university. And I was successful for both of those. And at that point, a good colleague of mine who is someone I regard to be a really good mentor said to me, you should be an associate professor. And I was like, but I don't have a PhD. And she said, it doesn't matter. Everything you have on paper, everything you've achieved, you could put together an application. So I bit the bullet and I successfully applied for that. And certainly was grilled on research and things like that as part of my interview in that process, but was successful in being promoted to level D. And so I am one of a few people, I guess, within the university who have got up to that associate professor. And I also know of someone who's got to professor status based on SoTL and leadership. And so it is possible. And I guess that's why I was keen to do this presentation so that people knew it was possible and that that whole research thing can be framed in a way that can enable you to have success and have the ability to be at those higher levels and have some real impact in the university if you can craft your applications well enough. Okay, so I guess then I sort of thought, well, I need to probably help you think about how I went about doing this. And so, SoTL, scholarship, teaching, learning, teaching excellence, of course, is core to that. And so when I think about how I wanted to demonstrate that, we have to provide evaluations, and often my response rates for my evaluations are not fantastic, particularly in the big units. But there's still some good data there, and there's good trends that I can identify across the years, and there's some good responses from students that I can use. But I also use some other survey tools as well, both the national surveys as well as some surveys that I put together. I've also had the opportunity, of course, to be able to grab all the emails and other correspondence I get from students, but also got a colleague of mine who's a videographer to just video the students answering some questions about my teaching, about some initiatives that I'd put together. And these were useful for my award applications, but also were useful when it came to putting my promotion application together. So the key thing that I was aware of in that when I was putting my promotion application together was it was kind of like my award applications, but a little bit different because I was probably going to have to convince a lot of people who weren't aware of what a teaching intensive academic was. So I pulled a lot of examples of teaching, kind of tried to help them understand the context that I was working in. And part of pulling together that snapshot, I guess, of what my teaching looks like and why it can be regarded to be excellent, which is something I sometimes still struggle with, is through peer review. So internal peer review opportunities I've always grasped, but also grasped external peer review. So utilising the HERDSA community and other communities that you're affiliated with is a great way to get just a review on, a little activity that you might have developed or the way that you're teaching within a classroom or the way you're assessing or anything like that. So over the years, probably the last 15 years, I've utilised a lot of colleagues across Australia and the world just to try and give them get some idea on what they think of a particular initiative that I put forward. And a lot of that was really useful to pull into my application. And then, of course, there are the awards and fellowships. And not everyone has awards because they are optional often for you to go for. But sometimes you have nominations. And so even the nomination information that you have can be really useful. So I have multiple teaching merit certificates and some student nominations. So I was able to use aspects of those. Then I have, of course, my citations. And then more recently, my fellowship, my Vice Chancellor's Award, and of course, my Teaching Excellent medals. And with respect to the Teaching Excellent medals, I also had a really lovely letter from the Vice Chancellor, and I actually did use a snapshot of that as part of my evidence in my promotion application. But the key thing here is always thinking about in a promotion application, you've got all this stuff, that keep in the bottom drawer or in a folder on your computer or a combination of that. But you've always got to make sure when you're going for a promotion that you can show that what you're doing, what you've achieved is having a real impact on student learning outcomes and student experience. And for me, that was important because I want to be a really effective teacher for students in my classroom or online, but I also want to ensure that they're having a great experience transitioning to university. So they're the two areas that I was always thinking about how can I connect all these and bring them into my application really successfully. So I'll talk more about teaching in a minute, but I thought it's also important to kind of show you my leadership journey. And leadership is something that I kind of just fell into, I think. And it's probably because I was never afraid to take on an opportunity when it was offered to me. So I started off as a unit coordinator from the day I started at the university. So I was employed 2 weeks before the university semester started. I was given a handful of papers and said, this is the unit you're teaching. And I'm like, okay. So it was a very quick sort of writing of overheads, the way we taught back then, and using whiteboards and things to try and teach the students. But it was kind of good in a way to get thrown into the deep end and utilize the people around me to ensure that I could coordinate that unit effectively. So I've always been a unit coordinator and I really enjoy doing that. I had an opportunity to just have a really simple leadership role, represent my school as on the library liaison committee. So that was really good, and coordinate the physiology laboratories within my area. And then I started to take on more broader responsibilities. So the first year coordinator role I've held since 2000, so 25 years, but it's something that I really love doing, and also coordinating a mentor program as part of that. And then I started to have roles that were more around that learning and teaching, quality assurance space. So associate head learning and teaching at the deputy level. And CRA champion was when the university wanted to make sure that all assessments were criteria reference based. And so they established champions within every school to actually drive this process. So I was nominated for my school. And so that meant for a 3-year process of connecting with the central CRA leader and developing workshops and ensuring that all assessments across our school had criteria reference sheets associated with them. So it was an interesting space at the time. And then, of course, I joined HERDSA. We had the conference here in Tasmania, so I became the Tasmanian branch chair as we established that branch, which I still do today. So certainly started to think about how I could be a leader beyond the university. And because of my success with teaching awards, I became a mentor for teaching award applicants. And then in the sort of mid-teens of the 2000s, I started to take on those really robust roles. We had a lot of changes happening in our university through not only health areas, but also the university as a whole. So our school kept changing what it was. It was a super school, and then it was a smaller school, and it just kept changing what it was. And different leaders came in and had different roles that I was appointed to. So I was in charge of undergraduate studies across the super school, and then I was just program chair for health sciences, and then I became a mentor for people applying for HEA fellowships as well. And then was really excited when my current head of school started. She saw my real keenness to keep students engaged and really have a positive effect on that student experience. So she appointed me as the academic lead of student engagement. And then from there, I became the Associate Head of Learning and Teaching. And that was a really challenging time. Of course, that's during our COVID years. And so helping to transform my whole school into online education was a very challenging time, but it actually provided me with a lot of opportunities to demonstrate my leadership and also work with others and pull together initiatives. And a lot of that became really vital evidence when it came to applying for promotion. And currently, as I said, I'm the Academic Integrity Advisor, and then I'm in charge of student engagement and retention across all areas of health. So down the bottom is a little graphic there. That's just a graphic that I use to kind of show how different leadership roles. That was in one of my teaching award applications. So there's different ways you can demonstrate this. And this is really the challenge, I guess, in a promotion application where it can become very black and white, lots of reading on a page. And I like to try and break things up with graphics. So I did use a couple of small graphics of data and analytics in my application, but mainly it was, of course, black and white writing. Okay, so when it came to applying for promotion, and I bit the bullet and thought, yes, I am going to do this. You know, obviously, like any of you who go for promotion, it's important to familiarize yourself with the criteria. And when you're a teaching intensive academic, this is where it can become a point where you second guess and think, oh, should I really be going for this? At UTAS, our criteria are three. There's teaching, there's research, and then there's leadership, community, internal service. I wasn't worried about the teaching area, wasn't worried about leadership, community, internal service, but the research area was one area I was really worried about. Even though I'd done that area, you know, fairly well in my application to become a senior lecturer, that was a time when we had OLT grants, and I was part of an OLT grant then. But since then, we've lost a lot of opportunities for funding in higher education SoTL research. And so I didn't have that to really boost my application. But I was assured by my mentor that I could still achieve this. And one thing I could definitely do was show that the University of Tasmania has a really great values statement, which is a one-pager, and I could really show that I aligned with that, as well as the strategy and goals current at this university. The important thing, I think, is to really think about what you've achieved. So really reflect, spend a lot of time reflecting before you apply for a promotion, because you've got to be able to highlight your achievements. You've got to be able to provide relevant evidence, and you've got to tell a really great story. And particularly when you're telling the story to someone who has no idea what you do and is probably in an area where research and ARC grants and things like that are really important, they need a lot of convincing. And so the strong narrative has to come through. And so that blend of, you know, your teaching philosophy or whatever needs to kind of go through the whole application and keep people wanting to read and wanting to see what you're doing and why you're worthy of this particular promotion. So teaching was a key focus of my application, as it would be for anyone who's a teaching intensive academic. And it's really important to make clear what your philosophy is. So to name it up in the application fairly early on, and then keep referring to it and making sure you're connecting it to lots of different things that you're doing, because it really underpins basically what we do. So within the application, I certainly talked about my different teaching methods and my different strategies. I talked about goals for my students and how I was able to achieve that. And inclusivity is really important. And I was able to link this to things like the University Accord. I think the University Accord was really timely for me that it came out last year. So I was able to link my application to that, because a lot of what I do as a Deputy Associate Dean, but also my stuff at the coalface, really meets what's going to be required in the Accord. That inclusivity, able to address how the diversity of our student cohorts is changing and how we're to address that with universal design of learning and other type of initiatives. So being aware of what's happening, even in the greater landscape, and how you can link to that within your application is really important. Evidence of teaching effectiveness, of course, is something you can often pull from your different evaluations, but also testimonials and other things that are available to you. And I think what I wanted to show to the panel that were looking at my application was that, you know, I've been an academic for a long time, but during that time, I've always embarked in professional development. I take any opportunity to learn, just because I've been an academic for a long time. over 35 years. It doesn't mean that I know everything because academia has changed so much. So showing that continuous improvement in my teaching and how I've been able to adapt to change and cope with, anything that's basically come my way as best I can, has been really good. And then trying to pull in a research teaching nexus, which, disciplined academics will do who are have a research area in their discipline. They pull that into their teaching. And this is where it's really important when you're a teaching intensive is to show how social really links to your actual teaching and your teaching philosophy, and showing those links really, really clearly and kind of spelling them out in your application can be really important. Also, talk about leadership in teaching, because if you're a teaching intensive academic, obviously your leadership roles will be linked to teaching. So any opportunities and how you've adapted to those and how you've incorporated those into your basic work life can be really important. And also those future teaching goals, because as we know, at the moment with generative AI and other things in the academic landscape, we definitely need to be able to adapt things. So I did talk about that in my application as well. So demonstrating teaching excellence sort of, for most of you, this, is probably not unfamiliar, and particularly if you've gone for any form of teaching award, these are the sorts of things that we utilize. We often have that compulsory requirement to include our student evaluations, which is fine because they're mandated by our institutions. But as I said, you can also include other survey data as well. So I actually extracted retention data because that links to my leadership position, and I tried to compare, what was happening in my school to other parts of the university and also beyond the university. So any little bits of data you can get. One of the key things that I did was link to our data person at the university and said, can you get data on this? Can you compare my evaluations to someone in another part of the university? He goes, yeah, I can do that. And just getting those little bits of data can be really, really useful at showing, the impact that you have in your teaching. Peer review, as I've mentioned, and teaching awards and recognitions. And student performance data. So sometimes it can be hard to do this. It depends what your initiatives are, but sometimes you can show how student learning has improved, like pass rates could have improved because of certain things that you've done within your actual subjects or units. Got a little bit of there we go. My thing's gone a bit funny. There we go. A teaching portfolio. So most of us would have some form of teaching portfolio, some sort of area that we kind of keep everything and reminds us what we do and why we do it. As I mentioned, student testimonials can be really useful. And so if you can sometimes get someone to interview students on your behalf and get some of those quotes from students about things that you're doing, that can be really valuable to actually demonstrate your excellence. Self-reflection is really important. I often just sit and reflect on what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And gosh, this little thing's now appeared in the landscape, and how can I now address this or incorporate this into my teaching? And as I mentioned, professional development's part of that. And when it comes to SoTL, then it's, thinking about, have you been invited to, present anything or share an initiative? Are people taking your initiatives and using them in their own practice? Publications is an area, of course, that, all academics are often pressured to, provide a certain number of publications per year. As a teaching intensive academic, I don't have that pressure, but I still manage to publish regularly. And one of the key points that I would say about publications is do it collaboratively. So find people who are interested in things you're interested in and publish with them. And you can just publish things that are reflections of what you're doing. You can publish reviews. You don't always need things like ethics to get a publication. And so be really clever about how you go about your publications journey as well. So I do have a lot of publications and I connect with lots of different people in my university. I don't like being siloed in my area. I like to break my silo down, and I connect with people throughout health, but also in arts and education and business, and look at, what they're doing and how we can work together and maybe pull a publication. So a lot of that was evident within my application, as well as my connections beyond my institution. So with people outside of here through physiology, but also through HERDSA and other affiliations, and how I've actually publish with them as well. And of course, your engagement with the literature, that can be part of your application. So showing that what you're doing is informed by, good practice literature out in SoTL and those teaching related affiliations. So, obviously I'm a member of HERDSA. I'm also a member of SoTL. I used to be a member of Ascalite, I'm a member of NSTA. There's lots of different ones that you can become affiliated with. And it shows that you are really on the ball with, what's happening in the SoTL space, so what's current in learning and teaching practice, and how you're utilizing that hopefully to improve your own. So research is the one that I think this is the section I always take a while to pull together, but I just had to focus on it as SoTL. And so it was kind of an extension of what I talked about in my teaching aspect of my application. But my mentor said, people are going to be reading your application and have no idea what SoTL is. They're academics, but they have no idea what SoTL is. So you'll need to talk about what it is. You'll need to actually explain it to them and weave it into your application in that way. So I did. I tried to explain it as best I could and really linked it to things like my teaching philosophy. So I kind of talked about how SoTL research enacted my teaching philosophy and enacted a whole lot of things that enabled me to become an excellent teacher. So I highlighted the benefit of doing research in SoTL means that at the coalface, I'm able to do these wonderful things. Everything I do in student transition is underpinned by Sally Kiff's transition pedagogy. So that's what I talked about, and I provide a link to that. So they're aware that, that's a really important body of work that I've utilized and become very aware of to underpin what I'm doing at the coalface with the students. Funding, as I mentioned earlier, is a difficult one, particularly in the SoTL space. So I was lucky enough to be part of Office of Learning Teaching funds, a really large fund that was led by the University of Adelaide. And so I did include it in my evidence because although it was, a while ago, I still felt that it was important to have it there in a time when funding was available. And I was really lucky that my head of school wrote a reference for me, as she was required to do. And in there, she spelt out the difficulty it is to get funding for SoTL research. So her actual supporting statement, which when my mentor read it, she was just like, wow, that is so powerful because it's actually setting up the landscape that it is and why you don't have any funding. So your head of schools acknowledged that and has actually made that a really important part of her reference. So think about how you can highlight that. And I just outlined that there were no funding opportunities. So I don't have any funds because there are no funding opportunities, both at the local level and it's very scarce, of course, beyond here. There are small opportunities, which sometimes I go for, but there is not that opportunity for those broad fundings that you can get in discipline-based research. Leadership and service, it's just really important to keep records of all service activities. I've been in the same job, although it's changed names and changed schools, although I've been in the same school, it just keeps changing its name. But I still keep a CV. So I update my CV all the time. And so this helps me to keep records of everything that I do. And it's quite amazing because you forget things that you do, all those little working parties and strategic groups that you're on, you kind of forget about them unless you've recorded them somewhere. So really encourage people to record things and have somewhere they can go to when they want to go for a promotion where they go, oh, that's right, I was part of that working party and that ended up with this at the university. And that's really powerful things to have. And think about your leadership style. So I knew that I was a distributive leader. I'm part of a team. I don't like to just be the one that, commands what's going on. I like to spread the leadership. And so I did talk about that and how that enables me to be an effective leader. I highlighted all the different opportunities that I'd had, particularly in recent years, and had evidence of, how I'd made impact as those roles. And then it also included those future aspirations. So that was basically continuing the roles that I am, but then seeing how I could become a more effective leader in helping the university meet the requirements of the Accord and things like that. So really try and think outside the square of what you can add in that space, because when you're going for promotion, they want to see that you're performing at the level you're promoting to, but you're also going to keep performing at that level and even beyond. So it's important to think about how you can include that. And leadership's a really key area, particularly when you start going for those level D and E areas. So I thought it might be useful for you just to know what I included in my evidence. So as part of the promotion application here at my university, we write our application, which is about 8 pages. Then we're allowed to provide another 8 pages of evidence. And then we have our head of school supporting statement, which I think was about 3 pages. And then we have our evaluations and things like that as well. So these are the types of things I included in my evidence. So I included some communications from students where they'd kind of named up something or quoted about something that I felt linked to something in my application really well. I also included some explanation of initiatives. So I run this mentor program. So I actually provided context of what that was and then showed how that program's actually reduced the number of emails that I have as a first year coordinator since its inception. And so I was able to hopefully demonstrate that impact. Data analytics, so I looked at some retention data and did some comparisons. I looked at some of my student evaluations and did some comparisons to the university as a whole and incorporated those. Publications, so where I had some publications, particularly with people outside of the university that linked to things I talked about in my application. I just produced a snapshot of the title of that with the authors and things like that. The grants, I did, as I mentioned my OLT grants in a little table. I had some copies of invitations, so excerpts from emails or other invitations that I got to present or do specific things within the university and beyond. I'd received a nomination by my course coordinators when I was Associate Head Learning and Teaching during COVID for a COVID award. And I wasn't successful in that award, but they wrote me a beautiful nomination. So I actually took parts of that and included that as evidence to show my leadership during COVID as an Associate Head Learning and Teaching. And then I had a table which showed me all the different committees that I'd been involved with over a period of time or strategic working parties that I'd been involved in over the last 5 years or so, and then talked about the outcomes. So I had kind of, what was the committee, when was I on it, what was my role, and then what were the outcomes. And so that was really strong evidence to show that I kind of involved in all these things and they do have some outcome or impact in the university. So impact is the key. So any of you who have gone for promotion will probably have heard that. It's kind of like writing a teaching order application, but you've really got to talk about impact because they really want to know, well, that's great, you've done all this stuff, but what was the impact? What did it actually achieve? And so you've got to have that word continually in your head when you're pulling together all of this information to hopefully put together your application. So part of a promotion is, obviously the bulk of the promotion application, but it's also a summary statement. So for us here at the university, and I'm sure it's similar across other universities, it's just 200 words. And I was told by lots of people, this is where this makes or breaks your application, these 200 words. And that's really quite scary. So it is about being really confident who you are. You've got to kind of name who you are and how you're meeting the expectations of the role you're applying for promotion to. And so I was encouraged to use bold text to really highlight key points here and use really strong adjectives to demonstrate excellence. And some of it I wasn't entirely comfortable about when I originally started to pull it together, but through the support of my mentor and others, I realized this really was who I was and this is what I really wanted to go for. And importantly, try and link to key university strategies. And you've only got 200 words, so it's really quite a challenge. So I thought, alongside a picture of our beautiful building that we've recently moved into, I thought I'd share my promotion summary statement to you just to demonstrate what I mean. And the key thing here is you've only got 200 words, and so you can't use things like HERDSA because people don't know what that is. So you have to actually explain what HERDSA is. So I start off with the first paragraph saying who I am. I've named it up. I'm teaching focused, but I've demonstrated sustained excellence. And I could say it's sustained because I've got all these awards and I've got all these achievements and I've had all this evidence from students and peers that show that this is true. But then I also want to say it's all aligned with the university strategy and the recommendations of the University Accord. So I kind of named up that these are the things that I'm going to link to in my application. And then it was about saying that my excellence is not just here at UTAS, it's beyond, so localized nationally and internationally as well. Then obviously teaching and scholarship is key to my application. So I needed a couple of really strong sentences that could demonstrate that. So committed to outstanding innovative undergraduate teaching underpinned by my student-centered teaching philosophy. So I gave them a little bit of a carrot what my teaching philosophy was, which accommodates student diversity and equity to enable student transition and success. So that was because I'd mentioned the University Accord. So I needed to make sure what I was talking about linked back to that University Accord. So it's that diversity and equity and success. And then my excellence is disseminated through scholarship of learning and teaching, SoTL, groups and publications, supporting SoTL colleagues as Tasmanian Chair of Higher Education Research and Development Society of Australasia. So I couldn't write HERDSA because they wouldn't know what that was. I had to actually name up what it was. So teaching is obviously a core part. That's included a little bit of, it's kind of let them know, not really going to talk a lot about discipline research. I'm going to talk about this thing called SoTL. So hopefully that kind of planted that seed. And then my leadership is how I finished my statement. So talked about it being innovative, multi-campus, interdisciplinary, and then I represented Tasmania and the Australian Physiological Concepts Task Force. So that was just one thing, but they thought that was worth mentioning because I'm a physiologist and I was invited to be part of that. And then just picked from my associate head role how I led implementation of quality assurance practices, and then currently lead student-centered strategies to enhance retention in my current role as a Deputy Associate Dean. So again, knowing that that links back to the University Accord and the university strategies. So that's kind of, it's really hard to write that summary statement. You do need to write your application first and then hopefully pull it together. And, there were many, many, many iterations of this one before I finally landed on that final copy. So to finish off, because I do want to give some time for you to ask me some questions, I just thought I'd talk about some key strategies and then some final tips. So one thing is really important is find someone who's a great mentor for you. I was really lucky to find a mentor or have a mentor who mentored me many years ago when I was doing a leadership course. And I've always kept contact with her. And then she actually planted the seed that I should go for this promotion. And I said, well, I'll go for it if you'll be my mentor, to which she agreed. And that was fantastic. So choose your mentor wisely and make sure it's someone who knows you and will have that time to help you. The head of school report's really important. I'm lucky I have a really good relationship with my head of school. She's really aware what I do, and it still blew me away, the actual report that she wrote me, because it did highlight some of those things like that lack of funding for SoTL, and she was able to craft the narrative around that as well as demonstrate, my excellence across a number of areas. So it can add something that you haven't been able to put into your application, as well as support and value add to what you've been talking about. Try to view previous applications. I was very lucky here at the University of Tasmania that I had a number of colleagues who were really happy to share their successful applications with me. My mentor had been unsuccessful many years ago, so she was able to share her unsuccessful application with me as well. So that was kind of useful, though it was a long time ago. But viewing previous applications, although they might be a different context, they just give you some ideas of how to sometimes pull the evidence together or display evidence or link the evidence to your application. And so it's just really useful. Like anything, it's great to see an exemplar. And then ask colleagues to peer review your application. So obviously my mentor peer reviewed many drafts. I can't remember how many drafts I got up to, but you do lots and lots of drafts. But I also got my Dean of Learning and Teaching to have a look at my application. I got someone else in student retention to have a look. I got another colleague who'd been successful in promotion to have a look, and they were really great in just pulling out lots of different areas that they felt were areas that I maybe could make something stronger or maybe explain something a bit better because they didn't quite know what I mean. So some things that you just don't see, having those different lenses is really valuable, as you would know. And if you do have an interview, which I know a lot of people do for level D and E at their institutions, ask your mentor to do a mock interview with you. I was lucky my mentor has been on the promotions panel before, so she knew what the interview process was like. I had to do my interview by Zoom, which was really challenging. I would have preferred to do it face to face, but if you do a mock interview, talk to colleagues who've recently been through the interview process, it certainly can help settle the nerves and make you a little bit of aware of what you're up for when you get into that interview. So my final tips, apply when it's right for you. So I think over the years, I've had a lot of people saying, oh, you should go for promotion, you should go for promotion, but you've got to find the time that it's right for you and you feel you have the evidence, because it takes a long time to pull it together. And so you just want to make sure you're as prepared as you can be. As I said, keep your CV updated, just add into it all those little things you do, because you just never know when they'll be useful. And don't reinvent the wheel. So when it came time to pulling my promotion application together, I actually went to my teaching award applications and I pulled bits of those in and used those as a starting point. So look at what you've written previously and use that to get started. And as I said, collaborate. The more you collaborate with people, the more ideas you get, the more it improves what you're doing. You can get that bonus of getting some publications and things happening as well. But collaboration within your area and outside your area will absolutely benefit any promotion application you pull together. And make SoTL shine. I must admit, I looked at my promotion application last week, thinking about what I was going to talk about in this presentation, and I can see that SoTL shines, and I can see that I've kind of really talked it up and made it sound fantastic and talked about how it really does link to what we do. And I think it's a great way of making people aware of the importance of SoTL and make them think about that in their context by just reading your application. So make it shine as much as you can. And absolutely highlight your impacts. Obviously, impact is what they're all about in promotion. So explaining what you do, what the outcome's been, what the achievement's been, linking it to evidence, absolutely going to be important. And be prepared to write many drafts. I don't know how many drafts I wrote. I lost count. I know when I did my senior lecturer application, I think I got to 21, version 21. That was pretty well the final one. So I'm sure that it was fairly similar for this one as well. But just, don't be afraid that you're going to write many. And obviously, each one will be better in lots of different ways. And so make sure you've got that time to do that. And as I said, seek input from multiple peers, because our peer community is just so useful and so supportive when it comes to pulling together something like a promotion application. So I hope that's been useful. Happy to take any questions, and there's my email address, because I'm really happy to connect with any of you at any time, even just for a brainstorming time or a chat or an email communication. Always happy to share my expertise. So thanks, Mel.
Thanks so much. That was really wonderful, and thank you for sharing so much about your journey and so many great tips that we can take away with us. I think that that's very inspiring, particularly when it comes to different career journeys and how you can really highlight the personal journey that we've gone on. I think that that's really inspiring. So thank you so much for sharing.
Thanks,
Does
Mel.
anyone have any questions that they would like to ask Tracy while she's here?
So I had a question that I put in the chat about the video that you mentioned in the beginning of the presentation. So did you have to ask permission or seek ethics or anything for videoing students, or like?
Yeah, okay. So with the videography, you mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I was going for my teaching, I think it was when I was going for my teaching medal application, I knew that I really needed some strong evidence. So I talked to our videographer. Now, within our school, our students complete consent forms to be videoed for a variety of things or have photos taken. So we made sure that the students had completed those and had consented in that way. So we have an official documentation for that. And then I also contacted the students. So they were actually my mentors, and I contacted them and I explained that I was going for a teaching award and would they be happy to answer some questions on video that would be recorded, and I would use some quotes or even some of the snippets of the video footage in my application, and they consented to that by that email. So we kind of had two ways. We sought their consent, and they were very aware of what it was being used for. So.
And I have a question, which is very quick, is about the staff who are non-teaching. So I'm academic developer. So my teaching happens in form of training staff. But as you know, I mean, like when I'm doing mentoring sessions for promotion applications, there are like 50 or 100 people coming in. And if I do training session, 50 register and 10 turn up. So how do you seek feedback from there? Like you solicit or you do like a feedback survey that nobody fills out, or like how does that work?
Yeah, so if I run a workshop or something, I often will do a survey. But sometimes I'll just solicit student or peer feedback on something. So yeah, sometimes it's just reaching out. And I think as long as you're quite clear in an application that this is unsolicited or solicited or whatever, you're quite clear how you've got the evidence, then that seems okay. So yeah, I've always tried to, I guess if I'm running an initiative like a workshop, I would probably run a survey at the end. But then when it comes to my students, I'm often reaching out to them and saying, "Oh, just complete this survey on this activity we did because I tried a new, platform." Or I might actually invite them to come and talk to me or talk to someone else, so it's a little bit independent. So I guess there's different ways that you can do it, Ms. Mira. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Sarah, I think your hand went up next.
I'll just stop sharing the slide.
Hello.
Better see. Hi.
Sorry about the interesting background here. It's freezing in Adelaide, so I'm enjoying some sunshine at home. My question was, I heard the magic words when it came to looking at data like continuations of students and success rates, that you had someone that you could ask for help with that. We don't really have that luxury at UniSA. So, and it's definitely one of those areas. I know that it's good data, and I always have this, not fear, but like I'm always put off about doing it because it's something that I have to look into a BI hub spreadsheet and it just makes my eyeballs spin. I guess I've got two questions. The first one is if you could suggest specifically what kinds of data you were looking for when it came to asking someone to help you with it, that would be great, or what they found that was useful, and I'll take some notes. And then I guess the other question was, I didn't quite catch who it was that you asked for help with it. So I thought that maybe there might be someone around the uni that might have some expertise, because we have to put in like a request for special help and they just ignore it. It goes into like an email black hole somewhere. So, yeah, I'm just trying to think about who I could ask directly that I might know that might be able to help me with it, because that's definitely a hurdle for me that I need to get over.
Yeah, no, and it's a good question, Sarah. So I guess looking at the data, the sorts of things I looked at was we get retention data. So I was looking at retention data. I had these data reports over a period of years. So I was able to do comparisons over a period of years, and I was able to show where retention in some courses had improved. Within my student evaluations, ours are set up so that we've got little graphs that show us how things have gone up and down. So I was able to capture some of those when it came to my individual units. But then when I was trying to think outside, what I had in my own little silo, and think about, how does this compare to someone in arts, or how does it compare to another university? That's when I was hitting a stumbling block. Now, I was just lucky that when I mentioned this, someone told me who the person was to contact. Now, it turns out it's the person who works within our university who receives all the data of our student evaluation questionnaires and all those national datas. But he also does a lot of work for us as academic integrity advisors. He, in fact, built our platform that we do all our academic integrity breach reporting, etc. So I was able to just email him, and then he just went, "Oh, I can show you anything you like." So he just started to pull this data together. I reached out also to the people within my college in the admin area and asked them who to contact. And they put me in contact with all these hidden people in our university who look at data. And they were able to provide me with a whole lot of comparison data over many years for retention data that I never even knew existed. And then when I said, oh, no, that's not quite right, I actually need to know for these courses, they went, oh, that's fine. And so they went and did that, and they channeled that. So I think it is about just making inquiries with your deans, with your heads of school, because they often know of these people or know who to connect with to find these people, but they are hidden in your university. They should be there.
Cool. Thank you so much for that.
That's all right.
Thanks. And Sue, you have a question.
Yeah, so Tracy, you were talking about your teaching portfolio, and I'm really curious about structurally what that looks like. How do you actually do the collating? What form do you keep it in? How do you kind of keep that evidence?
Yeah, so I used to keep it in Pebble Pad, and then our university got rid of Pebble Pad. So I decided at that point you don't rely on any technology for these things. So I have a box that has a lot of stuff in, and that's just cards and bits of paper and things that have come from students. I have in my email an area that's called evidence. And so any email I get that's a positive bit of feedback from a student or a peer, I copy it and I put it in my evidence folder. So I have in my email then a folder that's full of emails or copies of emails that may be useful to me at some point. And then similarly, I have a folder on my desktop that I just push things into. So my evaluations of teaching go in there. Lots of different things go in there. And then I keep my CV in there. So my current CV is in there, and that has got a list of lots of different things in it, so that I'm aware of what I've done. Because there's just stuff I forget that I do, as I'm sure you all do, because you're involved with a little working party for 3 months, and then it does what it was designed to do, and it disappears, and you forget you're a part of it until you go to pull together an application.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. I think in the interest of time, we might wrap it up there. So I would like to thank Tracy again for sharing so much today with us. I think that has been a really sort of inspirational look at how to demonstrate impact in sort of teaching intensive or teaching focused roles. So thank you very much for that. And just before we wrap up, I'll just share another slide, which is from HERDSA. We've been asked to share this because some of you may be aware that the HERDSA SoTL modules have been around for a while, and they're undergoing a bit of a refresh and revamp. And so we've been asked to spread the word about that if people would be interested in being a bit of a critical friend in trialing these new modules. So please get in contact with Alice Brown, and her email address is available there. And they would like some feedback on how that's going and how they're working. And I will give a shout out to Trisha, who's obviously deeply involved in that project. So please take a look, or let Alice Brown know if you're interested in reviewing them. It's sort of an important chance to refresh them for the community at large. So thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. And of course, Tracy for that really inspiring discussion. So we might wrap it up for today, and we will see you for our in-person session at HERDSA if you're coming along, and we're trying to also hold a hybrid event so you can join us online. And then we'll be back with our regular sessions in August. So thank you everyone, and hope you have a great weekend.